And welcome in, folks, to Open Mic Night. I'm your host, Noah Taluki, and on today's episode, yes, Dak Prescott looks like he's out for the season in Dallas. We'll get a couple of takes that some other people were thinking about when it comes to our quarterback here in Detroit, Matthew Stafford. Also, ways that the Lions can turn this season around after the bye week, and we'll get you a little Jacksonville Jaguars preview in a game that the Lions, I think, can win. And also, we're going to have an exclusive interview later on with a college and NFL coaching legend. He is the father of the run-and-shoot offense and was the Lions offensive coordinator from 1988 to 1990. It is the legendary Darrel Mouse Davis. He will be joining us later to talk a little bit about how the NFL has transitioned with his offense and a lot of the offensive principles that we see in that run-and-shoot offense that he created are now seen in the NFL. So it's going to be a very interesting talk, and I'm really, really excited to get this one going for you. I hope everybody had a great weekend out there, and I played some golf with my buddy at Eagle Crest out in Ypsilanti. My first time coming back home to Michigan since August, because of course I'm going to school down here at John Carroll University, just east of Cleveland, Ohio. So it was awesome to get back home, see some family and friends, and it was a good weekend. And I thought it was a great time to come home because the Lions aren't playing, and I'm always glued to my TV when I see the Lions. But I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really watch football when the Lions are on a bye, and this has been like this for a long time. I take a break from NFL football. I kind of do my own thing on the days that the Lions don't play. And I kind of like it. I kind of enjoyed, just letting go of TV for a little bit and just kind of getting out in the open, went outside, walked around, rode my bike, all that stuff. So I actually kind of enjoyed it. I know some people like to watch other football games and all that, but I don't know. That's just not me during bye weeks. I just like to relax. But I do keep up on some news, of course, and that the main news was that Dak Prescott is probably going to be out for the season for the Cowboys. And then you see all of these things flying around about Matthew Stafford and how the Lions need to trade Matthew Stafford to the Cowboys. All right, pause. Look, Matthew Stafford isn't going anywhere, okay? He's not getting traded. Our friend Matt Darrel last week came on, and he talked about how if Stafford wants to leave, he will go to Martha and Sheila and whoever's in charge over there and basically demand a trade because he thinks that the Lions are married to Matthew Stafford. And I'm going to be honest with you, I 100% agree. I don't see any Cowboy trade or anything like that. And I think, to be honest, the only reason people were coming up with this is because Stafford's from Dallas. If he wasn't from Dallas, I don't think they'd be talking. But in the past, we have seen Dallas as kind of like a destination possibly for Stafford to go to once his career is over with the Lions, just because he's from there. I don't buy this. I have never been a fan of this whole thing. I do not think Matthew Stafford is being traded. I think he's going to be here as long as he can be, unless he demands a trade, which I don't see that happening anytime soon. So just to get it out of the way, I don't buy into that, and I've never really been interested in any Stafford trade talk right now. So I didn't want to elaborate too much on that, but that's just my thoughts, and I'm sticking with them. So I had a couple of other things I wanted to get to first. Of course, Lions 1-3 at the bye, coming off the Saints loss, and had the bye week to regroup and prepare for the next few weeks, which on the schedule look like pretty winnable games. They're going to play Jacksonville down in Florida on Sunday. It's a 1 o'clock start, and I think this is a game that they can definitely win. We'll get to more of the Jags preview later, but these are two keys for each side of the ball, 2 on offense, 2 on defense, that I think the Lions need to do in order to turn their season around and have any sort of hope of winning anything this year. First of all, offensively, I think one thing that's very important is they have to get the ball to TJ Hockenson more. I like when they do get him the ball. I think he is a guy who can be lethal in the offense. They just don't get him the ball enough. This is a guy, folks, remember, he was the 8th overall pick in 2019. So he's got to act like it. They got to use him more. And I'm kind of tired of him getting 4 receptions for 50 yards or whatever. No, this guy should be a 100-yard, 2-touchdown threat basically every game. I want to see that more with Matthew Stafford and Darrel Bevel as the offensive coordinator. Also, I know it sounds kind of cliche, but they got to establish a run game. They don't really have, I feel like right now, an identity for a run game. I feel like, one drive they'll go with Adrian Peterson. Another drive they may try to see if Kerryon has anything left in the tank. And then one other drive they'll go with Swift. Even though Swift played well last week against the Saints, they seem to rotate him in and out, which I don't really know why. Why don't you just go with the hot hand? They got to establish something on the ground because it's an old record. It's an old record bit. The Lions have not really had a consistent run game since Barry Sanders, and we've been looking for that for 20 years now. So they have to establish some sort of ground game in order to have any chance of winning. Because you look at the good teams in the NFL, Kansas City, you look at the New Englands and other teams like that. They've always had an identity with running the football, and they've always had running backs that can do that. So I definitely think that that's one key offensively. Defensively, we've discussed it on previous podcasts. They have to stop playing cover one all the time. They have to stop playing that man-to-man. They're playing man-to-man way more than any other team in the entire National Football League. And in this day and age, you got to play more zone against these speedy receivers. Corners can't catch up with receivers all the time anymore like they used to. The rules have changed and all that. So they have to stop. They got to go with more of that zone to give the quarterback a different look and then sneak up on them. They played a little more zone against Arizona, and look what happened. They won. So I think that's one key. And another key, folks, we've been saying it for years, they got to get pressure on the quarterback. I mean, we have been dying for a pass rusher here in Detroit for a long time now. A guy that can truly come in, and I know Ezekiel Ansah had his spots and all that, but we need a guy that can just wreck the game, and that'll be on our team for 10 years. A solid game wrecker at defensive end. And I know it's kind of early for the draft, but that's kind of a player that I want in this 2021 draft. But we'll have more draft discussions obviously later. It's way, way too early for that. But they got to pressure. Corey Unlin, I thought he was going to be blitzing a lot more and coming up with these unique ways to get to the quarterback. I haven't seen any of that yet this year. So it's going to be interesting. I think those four keys, two on offense, two on defense, are really going to help turn the Lions season around if they have any hope of winning anything this year. All right, moving on now to a little Jacksonville Jaguars game preview. Much like the Saints, they do have some key starters that will be out probably for this one. C.J. Henderson, one of their best cornerbacks, he's going to be out. Miles Jack, one of their better linebackers, also going to be out. Josh Allen, who was drafted very, very high a few years ago out of Kentucky, one of the best pass rushers that year in, I believe, the 2019 draft. He is also going to be out. So they're going to have a couple key starters on the defensive side of the ball that the Lions should be taking advantage of. But, I mean, we saw that game against the Saints. They had 6 starters out, and we still lost. So I've learned now to kind of take that with a grain of salt, who's going to be out of the game. But I'm really hoping that the Lions can rebound. Obviously, I think the Lions defense will have to watch out for Gardner Minshew, one of the better quarterbacks this season in the NFL in terms of statistics. I mean, he's got a 70% completion percentage. He's thrown for just over 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns compared to 4 interceptions. And their running back, James Robinson, who's really come out of nowhere this season, he's their leading rusher with just over 300 yards on the ground. So they definitely have a couple of receiving threats to look out for. 3 receivers that actually have over 200 yards, Shenault, Chark, and Cole. Definitely guys to watch out for the Jaguars. But I think, especially with how porous this Lions defense is, I could see this game maybe being a shootout because of how good the offense is for the Jaguars, statistically at least. I know they haven't really won many ball games. They're 1-4. But it's their defense that's really been the issue this season. I think Matthew Stafford, this could be the day where the Lions turn around offensively and get some points on the board and gets you some confidence. But also defensively, I just don't know. I think this could be one of those games that you get up in the 30 points for each team. So we'll have to see. I'm excited about it, though. And another thing to really look out for the Jaguars is their pass rush. Without Josh Allen really in there, they don't have much of a rush. I mean, they've only registered 5 sacks on the season, 4 games. That's not really much. So definitely look out for that. And I think if the Lions do everything right and they make a couple defensive stops here and there, I think they come out and win this game. But you never know, because we've seen obvious defeats against the Bears, and we see obvious defeats against the Saints and all that. And you think, wow, they have all these fourth quarter, or they have all these double-digit leads. Why can't they come out on top? I don't know. It's just something, but Matt Patricia has to come up with ways to make this team more competitive. I mean, this is going to be their 5th game. I mean, there's plenty of time left. I mean, I'm not expecting, obviously, like playoffs at this point, but I'm expecting them to kind of salvage a season a little bit. And I just want some hope for the future. That's all I'm looking for. But I definitely think that this is a game that the Lions can come out on top. And welcome back here to Open Mic Night, where we have a very special guest, a very esteemed head coach in the game of football, Mr. Mouse Davis, the father of the modern run-and-shoot offense. Mouse, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Hey, you're welcome.
All right, so I wanted to ask you, really, first off the bat, how did you get your nickname Mouse? I just feel like it's a very interesting nickname to have.
Well, when I was freshman in high school, my dad used to call me Boar Mouse around the house because I had real small hands. And as a freshman in high school, I was playing with the varsity baseball team, second base. And my brother was catching. And he threw the ball down the second base to me, and he said, and I dropped it. He said, "Nice hands, Mouse." That's all it took.
Wow.
By the time I got out of high school, all teachers were calling me Mouse. So and I thought when I went to service, I would surely lose it. But it turned out I go to the service with guys that I had known, and so I just hung on I'm still Mouse.
Really, really funny. But so I wanted to get more into, how the run and shoot really took off. I know you were a high school coach back in the state of Oregon, I believe, for many years, and then you were the head coach over at Portland State, where that run and shoot offense really took form. Talk about really the idea behind it in an era where a lot of teams were all about the ground and pound.
Well, what happened was, we used to go to football clinics when I was coaching football, as I was. And one trip to, I guess we were going to Seattle, University of Washington. And as we're driving up there, I was assigned to run and shoot a football book. It was by Ellison. So I gave this talk on run and shoot. And then I started using the offense and started it's not anything like what the run and shoot was as far as the book is concerned, but it became the offense that I used. I had great success with it, so I coached at the high school, college, pro level, every pro league, including the Canadian League, where I used the offense. So that's kind of how she all went.
Absolutely. But, of course, you were in 1989-1990, you were the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator for 2 seasons. That was, I believe, your first job in the National Football League. So I was just curious, what went behind that hiring process? Of course, the NFL sort of changing its mindset in terms of offensive philosophy.
Well, I went up there as a part-time coach assistant during the season. I can't remember exactly what happened, who got fired. Somebody got fired. And there was myself and another guy that was up there, and we were running the offense. And we just were putting in little portions of the offense into what amounted was the offense at that time. And then as the season, as it ended, I got hired as the offensive coordinator. And so I put in the whole offense. And then from that point, I coached in everywhere in America, and Canada included, and used the offense with great success.
Wow. And, of course, when you were with the Lions, you were the offensive coordinator when they drafted Barry Sanders, the star running back, of course, NFL Hall of Famer, Lions legend. Just talk about what it was like working with Barry Sanders and that whole draft process behind it.
Well, Barry's really a great kid and a great person to work with. So everything's fine. He doesn't care what you're doing. All he's doing is he's getting the football and running with it, and running very well with it, I might say. And so as we used Barry in the offense, and there were several people that were playing that same position that were trying to beat out Barry. And Barry isn't exactly the ideal that you're looking for in a run and shoot. You're looking for a bigger, stronger, because it's a blocker first and a ball carrier. Well, we didn't need to use him much as a blocker. Oh, he was good enough blocker, but a great runner, and just made the offense Barry Sanders good. And when you got something as good as Barry Sanders, that's going to help any offense.
So when you were in Detroit for those 2.5 seasons, what do you remember most about that time in the Honolulu blue and silver?
Well, really what we did was we took an offense that had never been used by anyone and put it in and used it totally as our offense. And the fact that we had Barry, of course, helped tremendously in the run game. So we had a great run game because all you do is hand the ball to Barry. And because we were running the run and shoot, which is 4 wides and spread out, everyone is back off of you. And so, and if they tried to get tougher, it made our pass game much better. So all in all, it was a good marriage. And of course, Barry is, unless you're later, they use an offense with Barry that was double tight and, slug mouth, and almost killed him for a year. And then they went totally away from that, and the kid was great. And it's pretty tough to screw up a kid like Barry, but you can do it if you just put everyone in tight and just line them up and don't give them any natural holes. In our offense, there are so many natural holes that a great runner like Barry can find and make him look like he got a great running game. And it's really not so much the offense that's a great running game as it is the runner. And in Barry's case, he was a great runner, so it just made things so much better. We always had a good running attack with whoever was our running back, but not like with Barry, of course.
Absolutely. So I just want to ask, because in the NFL, you don't see necessarily the run and shoot style offense anymore like the Houston Oilers did back in the 90s with Warren Moon and all that. But there are a lot of concepts that were taken from that run and shoot offense in the NFL today. Can you elaborate a little more maybe on some of those concepts that you see in today's NFL that were taken from the run and shoot?
Well, when I put on an NFL game, it looks like all run and shoot offense. What they've got is 4 wides, and in most cases, 4 and 5 wides. So they really spread it out, and they just added one. We used to run 5 wides too, and this is more difficult to defend it. So you look at the NFL today, and it's all run and shoot, basically. I mean, that's the whole concept is run and shoot. And I'm sure they don't call it that because run and shoot always had a bad name that you couldn't do anything except run. Well, now, of course, everyone's using 4 and 5 wides, and they're also using tight end as a wideout or as a slot receiver. And that's fine. We did the same thing. And I used to get tight ends that were great kids, and we use them as receivers. And the same with your single backs. So it's obviously nice to see, from my standpoint, that everyone's finally got the idea what the hell's going on with the game of football.
So you were on the cutting edge, obviously, when you really were in high school and at Portland State, really of the evolution of the game. Of course, we mentioned there was a lot of ground and pound back in the day where you were way ahead of the time. And you've seen in your decades coaching, you've seen the game evolve. Where do you see offenses and the game going next in the future?
Well, I think they've already done what they can do, and so they put the fifth guy out. And a lot of them are using more five and wide, and they're using so much motion, remotions, trips, single, double, and it's 2 and 3 guys in motion, and then they stop and of course, you can only run one in motion at a time. But they do all the shifting and motion, and I think they're doing everything that they do to get you so you are less and less oriented, just like when we ran our offense, less and less oriented to what you're really doing defensively. And I think that's exactly what they've gone to. And to be very honest with you, I don't see where they're going to go from here. They're using everything they could use. And it took a while, but at least they're using everything they can use, and they shortened the field, so to speak, by using everyone that you can use. Used to be you could pretty well put your defense in a short little area. Now you have to defense the entire field, and it makes it much more difficult when you get in 5 wide and you use all kinds of motion back and forth, and it's difficult to defend. And it's, I think, someone will come up with something, I'm sure. But I don't know what it's going to be because they're basically using everything now that they can use to show you on the offensive side of the ball.
So back to when you were at Portland State, the offense that you kind of designed with the run and shoot, it was designed for, like you could have smaller, faster, quicker guys that could really get around those big players. Do you see offenses changing in today's game due to physical characteristics of athletes, getting bigger, faster, and stronger, or is it more based on complex defenses? Or I know there's the introduction of analytics that's involved as well. Do you see any of that changing because of those?
Not really. What's happened in the NFL, kids are getting so big and so strong and still talented and still can run. Like when we use all the little guys because nobody wanted them. And they could still run, so we used them at Portland State. And we also, we didn't dislike big kids, but we liked speed and quickness. And so that's exactly how the game went. And the game has evolved. And now the kids are just bigger, faster, stronger, more talented, better athletes in every way. And it's just made the entire game more complex and more difficult to defend and more fun to watch, in my opinion.
I wanted to ask you one question about coaching and teaching. They go along so similarly, and obviously you were able to implement a very revolutionary offense. Just talk about how similar it is, in the classroom versus, out on the field, how they work hand in hand.
Well, actually, everything is the same, whether you're teaching or whether you're coaching. Like I taught for many, many years at every level, and I do mean every level. And there isn't a great deal of difference. I think in both cases, you have to have the kids with you. And in both cases, they have to together learn what you're trying to accomplish. And they put it together. It's so similar, coaching and teaching. And a good coach has got to be a good teacher. Now, there are a lot of coaches that don't teach very well because they're not interested in teaching. But there are some coaches that are excellent at both, and it's just one of those things that they can be very good at both because they're so similar, in my opinion, from one to another.
Final question for you, Mouse, here. So when you watch these NFL games and, in college and all that, what do you think of when you see all of these concepts that you helped implement? You helped change the game of football, and you see it on a regular basis. You see some of the variations of the run and shoot now, even with like Cliff Kingsbury and Mike Leach running the air raid, in the NFL and in college. So just talk about what you think of when you see all that, and how does it make you feel when you see it at the higher levels?
Well, you mentioned one guy, Mike Leach, who he strictly was just direct guy from the run and shoot. It was one of his associates and sister. We spent a great deal of time together, and they picked up the offense. And then every guy takes the offense, just like they do in the run and shoot, or just like they do in the NFL, and they make it their own. So they're running 4 and 5 wide, and they're doing what they're doing, and they're approaching it. And so I understand that. That's my deal. That's their deal. And if you ask them, "Are you run and shoot?" they say, "I don't know what run and shoot even is," and they don't. But they're actually a descendant of the run and shoot, and so all of them in the NFL now there's still one or two that are still kind of slug mouth and stay, but very rarely, and even those are becoming more and more oriented to 4 and 5 wide. It's basically become a 4 and 5 wide league, and so as I watch it, I say, yeah, it's arrived as the offense that started. Now, when I got mine from Tiger Ellison, who wrote the book Run and Shoot. Like I say, we use the things, but it's different. So I don't say that I ran Tiger's offense, but I got it from Tiger. And I used to talk to Tiger before he died a long time ago now. And so many of the people have died, and I have lucked out that I haven't. I hit close to the death scene or not too long ago myself. So all the ones that started out way back when are pretty much gone. But all the guys that are in the not all the guys, but the majority of guys in the NFL now are using the concepts and are using the deal. And I feel like sometimes I could go in and I could help several of different ones make them a better offense. But hey, they're doing fine.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the kids, and I've had some great quarterbacks that certainly have helped, and receivers that have helped, and funny enough, owners of different teams that have just bought into what we have, and that's how the offense really took root. When I started coaching in the pros, so many people started paying more close attention. In high school, they don't pay much attention. College, they pay a little more attention. Pros, they pay a lot of attention. So that's how the game of football spreads.
I want to thank Mouse Davis for coming on, the pioneer of the run and shoot offense, and a lot of his passing concepts are still relevant in this game in the NFL and college and all over the place. So, Mouse, thank you so much for joining us, taking a time out of your day.
Hey, great talking with you, and I wish you well, and wish all the people well that are involved with the offense.
And we want to thank football coaching legend Mouse Davis for coming on the podcast. I was really, really happy when I got the chance to interview him, and he is an icon. He is a guy that has come up with the run and shoot offense back in the 70s, and a lot of his principles are still very common in the NFL today. I've always thought that was interesting about him, and I've read a lot of his things before online, and I've looked at some of his playbooks, and I've seen documentaries that he's been in, and I thought, you know what, he would be really interesting to have on the podcast here. And so I reached out, and sure enough, I got him, and I was really, really fortunate to have him on, and he was very, very interesting. Great guy to talk football with. Obviously, the father of the run and shoot offense. But that'll do it, folks, for this week. I really, really hope that the Lions can win this one, and I'm just always optimistic about them, no matter how bad they may look. I always want them to win. So that's just me. I'll never be anything else because I'm not Lions free like some other people are. Lions are a big part of my Sundays every fall. So that'll do it. Thanks again for tuning in. We're hopefully going to get a Lions W on Sunday, only on Open Mic Night.